When divine reality smiled to be remembered. And in the subtitle I've written a hidden playfulness. Where are the efforts of human beings leading? What is that ultimate conclusion that the future will know and the present has an inkling of? The human being finds itself stationed in an individual physical reality. Accompanying it is simultaneously a mind, an unknown, let's say, occurring mind, where there is access to subjective reality. And so it's as if our physical eyes reveal to us what the world is doing, and our mind is revealing to us how we are happening in the world. You know, I was thinking about religious people, secular people, all the types of human beings that are on this planet, and my own, I would say, aim and vision is so far beyond a singular human identity that it's as if, you know, if you ask the common man what's the best thing that can happen on earth, they may say world peace. But if you ask Mr.Within what's the best thing that can happen on earth, I would say, imagine we already had world peace. What would we do next? Imagine everybody was enlightened and free. What would we do next? The concept of divinity is a concept that in different ideological systems has a different value, has a different acknowledgement. In a religious context, a miracle is the work of the divine reality. The divine reality is under the administration of an inconceivable primordial creator. As far as human intelligence is concerned, we appear, or we discover ourselves being present in a world. Our relationship with the world on some level is our mind, but our relationship with our mind is what I would say a step towards divine reality. If a person wants to know how they are a body, the mind is required. There needs to be consciousness in the room in order for the room to be noticed, to be seen. It's not just reality as a photograph of a noun. It is in some sense a noun where a verb is having a relationship with a noun, really. I'll be very frank that there has been moments in my life where I have felt I have a soul, that there is a spirit to things, that it's not just forces keeping an inanimate shape. It's as if there has been moments where I have asked why is my heart beating, and the potential of my mind has been the only answer. But what is the mind? And there have also been moments where I would say the whole moment has to me been inanimate, lifeless, and this might sound bizarre, especially for a kid who was raised in a theocratical society, but there has been moments where I have wondered if my soul is even here. Right? For a long time I had this thought, especially when it goes to the memories of my own childhood. It's like let's say a section of my memories are they are not from a first person point of view of my eyes, you know. So I wondered, could it be that in some sense the body, or let's say how the mind moves the body, is kind of like how Jarvis in Tony Stark, like in the Iron Man movie, Jarvis is setting up the Iron Man suit, you know. And when Tony Stark requires it, in some sense the soul appears. And I'm saying this is just a view I've had on myself. Pretty much I'm saying there's been moments where I have noticed as if there is a soul, there is an igniting force that can stand on its own in the moment, and there has been moments where I have felt I am being, it's literally like my eyes are in the passenger seat and they are being moved. So I would say the mystery of the divine reality is the question of what is moving here. And so we can attribute it to a body, we can attribute it to a mind, an object, and a subject. But I have realized there are moments, and deep down, I don't know why I feel this, but I feel that the species is being prepared for a transcendental acknowledgement of reality. You know, something incredible about one's mind is that one's mind is where desires of a subject live. You know, there was this show on, I think it was HBO or somewhere, where in the show there was this character that would say, "What do you desire?" You know, the show was, I think the show was called Lucifer or something. You know, the only show that makes you feel sorry for the devil, you know. But anyways, in this show, this character who was depicting the archetype of the fallen angel would go up to people and say, "What do you desire?" Right? And the person would have to be purely honest or something. And so if a person wonders about their nature of their mind, they see that if the force that moves us in its subjective dualistic interpretation comes across as a desire, really what the human being is a series, it's like a collection of reactions, unconscious reactions plus conscious responses. If the unconscious reactions are way more, let's say, I don't know, I mean, this is pretty abstract, but let's say a human being makes 1,000 decisions in a lifetime, in a span of 100 years. Now, if their life is being unconsciously lived, they wouldn't know. It's like out of the 1,000 decisions, they would have probably experienced, like they thought in their lifetime, they made 30 decisions. Do you know, as if the rest, 70 of them, let's say 300 decisions. What I'm trying to say is that what part of our intelligence is in a conscious domain and what part of it is unconsciously happening. And so if the species, if the human being has an ability to, for 1 second, press pause on the video game of language, where would meaning stand, or where would be the source of intelligent movement? You know, I feel something that is built in us as human beings is that we get bored of our limits, and therefore we aim to surpass our limits. And also there is this idea that if we don't surpass our limits, we die, right? Like if you look at our earliest ancestors, if they could not change, the world would replace them, you know? Pretty much, what is the source of movement? And why should one person even say that divine reality is smiling to be remembered? What is it that we human beings have forgotten or need to remember, which will completely transform the nature of our identification with movement? Like right now, the human strategy is, okay, you're a physical entity, look at the physical realm, try to, cope and survive in the physical realm, right? But when you look at it as a psychological entity, the idea is like, okay, what is the purpose of a psychological entity? We think that the mind is here just to preserve the body, but on some level, the mind gives access to an inner reality which is not physical. So it's another way of saying, what do we do with the non-physical parts of life, And when I say non-physical, it doesn't mean non-visual. Like I can imagine like an apple pie hovering in the air, but it's not like I can pick up that apple pie and start eating it, Questions like raindrops seem to be falling in an oceanic answer, the questions of our intelligence, the questions of what is moving our intelligence, and the question of what is the nature of that which is moving here. A good way to see this is the concept of a language. And what language is it's a translation of reality. So imagine, somebody can't, like right now I have to use words to explain images and events behind my eyes, in front of it. Now, could physical reality, could geometry be a language? Let's say somebody explains what skydiving is, but it doesn't replace the experience of skydiving. And let's say somebody physically exists, but it does not explain, the reality, the divine reality. I don't know what is it about the nature of my own mind that after I have considered all the possibilities for an individual intelligence, it automatically leads to a collective vision. It could be that this whole time, what is looking out through the eyes of all of us is a sort of singular, unchanging moment. Imagine a creator of a video game, like testing the video game and then choosing to be a character in the video game, and then as a character in the video game telling all the other characters in the video game that there's something more than the video game. If we choose to comprehend the nature of, let's say, a possible divine reality in accordance to the past, usually religion has that, has a flag in that corner. So if I want to understand divine reality, I go see what ancient mystics said, what the ancient religion said, and in some sense I get a sense of, okay, so this is what divinity is, the invisible hand of truth and the illusion, adjusting the simulation or illusion. If I wanted to wonder about what is the divine reality in the present, at some point I would have to acknowledge an honesty of, like, before I put any effort of articulation, what is being the moment? We say we are human beings, but could it be that the way we are being is way more ancient or potentially eternal than the human part? It's as if we are human beings. The being is eternal, the human is temporary. So we're technically a temporary eternal being, or a temporarily manifest act of eternity. Because this is a podcast, I am left with language. Like, what else can I say, But at the same time, there is the advantage of poetry, which poetry is another way of saying certain human beings used direct experiential sight and emotional positions to stretch out the language that the past had accepted. You see, it's the nature of how much we want to divide our attention. And I remember, I think it was a video I was seeing, but there was this idea that in Gnosticism, which is, let's say, a transcendental denomination of Christianity, right, there's this idea that it's like what the soul is that it's the light of the divine, and we are within every human being. There's a light, or metaphorically you can take it as there is a potential of let's say for now there's a potential of eternal action. There's an eternal potential within every individual, and think of this as a light, and based on how the person lives, this light escapes out of the crevices of egoic structures based on the past. For me, honestly, like, it's not that I like or dislike religion, right, or the concepts of religion, right? To me, there's just this idea that why have new human beings been created? Why have new eyes entered the world if all eyes were had to be the same? Right, for me, on some level, profoundly, I see religions as like prophets, as sort of equivalent to time travelers, those inspired by the inconceivable future of their moment, right? And on another level, I see religion as a sort of cloning mechanism, right? And I could totally understand for the, let's say, our ancient ancestors who, when religion arose, it was like new for them. It was their game to play. But centuries after, it's as if our human beings truly being honest. It's as if, imagine you're born in a world, and in the world there's this game where the past is telling the present what it has to be. And so in this game, the human intelligence has to be like, is divinity knowable in accordance to the past? Could it be that, this might be a bizarre thing to say, But it's as if somebody truly believes in the idea of God, how can they believe it? What are you believing in? In certain religious texts it says God is inconceivable, God has no partner, yet there's billions of people believing in God. They are believing in what? Right? So how do you believe in something that has no content, or no content could replace? Right? And I found it very fascinating. You see, for example, in the Abrahamic tradition, there's a story attributed to Abraham, the prophet Abraham, and the idea is, it's like, at least I'm aware of this from the Islamic theological perspective, that it's like what the Kaaba is in Mecca, where Muslims, it's the direction which Muslims pray to, even though we're on a sphere. But the direction that the Muslims pray to is to the Kaaba, and what the Kaaba was that it was this room where during a polytheistic time of Abraham, right, Abraham came and saw a bunch of people worshipping idols, gods they had made. So it was a room for polytheistic gods. And then there's this story that Abraham gets a hammer, he tells the people not to believe in objects, and people are in some sense like, no, we want to believe in our own gods. And so what Abraham does is he gets a hammer, he breaks all the other gods except one of them, and he places the hammer beside that statue, and he waits, and everybody comes and says, oh, Abraham, did you break our gods? And Abraham says, no, this one God broke all the other gods, right? And so they shout back at Abraham as if that God is not alive, that's just a statue, that statue can't break the other statues. And then Abraham says, if it's a statue, how can you call it your God? So it's like, let me say it this way, Abrahamic religion was actually a transitory period where the attachment and focus of human attention shifted from an object into an idea. And what the revelatory texts were that it replaced an object being worshipped as God into language from God. Do you see? What I'm saying is kind of bizarre, guys. It's not intended with any sort of dishonor or something like that. It's just that I'm saying, if God is truly inconceivable, then the act of belief is like seeing a partner to God, right? I'm pretty much that person that's saying language can't replace truth, but it seems it has in modern culture and just so far, right? So the species had an attachment to attention being locked on an object, and then the attention shifted from the simulated nature of, let's say, worshipping an object to the attention worshipping a subjective narrative. An object, an idol was replaced with an idea, with a story. We are living in the story worshipping phase of human history. We don't realize it, but we are, right? And this is where poets sometimes feel their attention starts from a world that's free. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is that there's a past acknowledgement of the divine reality, the inconceivable origin, and really it's as if, did God want us to live in a book, or did God want us to live in the world? Right? It's as if God created this whole world just for our minds to ignore it and just limit it to one narrative. For me, I find that they promote honesty, right? They promote humility, right? But what does humility and honesty for a soul mean? Right? That means a body being honest. You're kind of like a Zen master, right? Let's say a mind being honest. Let's say somebody like who has honor, like a knight or something, you know. there's a sort of honesty, staying true to the language, right? The story of reality. So so honesty of the body is staying true to what you physically are, being honest with it, to honest with the as is nature of your perception. And then for the mind, it's as if being honest with the story or the value system you're moving in. But what does honesty for the soul mean? And you know what's hilarious? The greatest honesty of the body and the mind is that they are actually waiting for an effort through consciousness to move them. You know, so what it is that the divine reality is a non-objective and non-subjective movement. And if we are truly honest, it means it is the unknown, right? For me, it's, I would say maybe I'm a, kind of an odd person, I wrote this story where there was this, what do you call it? All these sheep were walking to the slaughterhouse, and there was this one black sheep that was walking the other way. And everybody was like, hey man, why don't you trust the herd? Why don't you trust the crowd? Why don't you trust everybody else and where they're going, right? And the black sheep, just silently kept walking, right? Because on some level, to be a new human being means that you are going in an inner rebellion against the past, right? Because what is of greater value for us to fit the structures we are familiar with, or for us to be the unfamiliar? Whoever you are on this planet, why are you here? Are you here to be are you here to be something that has been seen before? Or are you here to establish a relationship with the unseen? Many people don't realize that in certain religious books, the first passage is as if this book is for those who believe in the unseen. To believe in the unseen means you're believing in something that has no content. Therefore, it is rendered as just instantaneous faith. Right, and it's as if all ideological systems, what is the greatest thing they can preach? Trust your world, because now you are a part of it. You have entered it. We are on stage, right? And what is the great grand mystery of the divine reality? I look at lesser species like birds and squirrels, and I'm like, okay, what's the purpose of this bird? And the bird is just very harmoniously, peacefully, as if lesser species that don't have a sophisticated use of memory and language as the human being does, it's as if they are already free. It's like that caterpillar on the leaf seemed already enlightened, already divine, because it was being what it is. But it's not. What the difference with the human being is that we are being what we internally are. And the grand mystery is when, I would say, the skies of the inner realm crack and the original earth is revealed. Some people very easily, they can love, they can love the world, love everything. Even some saints, and sages, they believe they are like the supreme love, as if it's like their relationship to the concept of an ultimate creator was that they are part of the love of God, not in some sense the hate, right? Because the issue is that something was made. The human archetype is here. A character is roaming in the space-time continuum of an elemental video game. We are here now as creatures, and now the question comes, what sorts of relationship can we have in the scope or the domain of our consciousness? Right? Because what is knowledge? The purpose of knowledge is to increase ability. Why do we want ability? To surpass limits. there's this there was this show, I think it was called Black Clover, where it was like this Japanese comic turned into an anime show. And in it, there was a character who was always trying his hardest and all of this, but one time he fails. And there's another OP, like more mature character, like, a greater character comes to this other character, this main character who has failed, and he says to him something where, honestly, when I heard it, it was like a very incredible realization, right? So he comes and says to this character, I think the main character's name was Asta, and the character who says this to the main character, his name was Vermilion or something. So anyways, the OP character comes up to this, kid Asta, and he says, being weak is nothing to be ashamed of. Staying weak is. And so the responsibility, the burden that comes with conscious human life is that we have noticed the unknown and we cannot ignore it. We cannot just lock down reality in a story and forget the mystery of a cosmos that we are suddenly in. It's as if it's like our minds are, it's a slow hand clap for all the minds that haven't freaked out in the void yet. That is true fear. Right, sure, there's a fear of like danger, that's very understandable, right? Let's say somebody's afraid of fire, right? Like that's a real fear. Now, imagine a fear that I think only only the very strong-willed philosophers can truly access this fear, and it's the fear of in the middle of, it's like the fear of how everything has been simulated and nothing. There was this, I think somebody was saying it, that even though there was this whole very profound and very elegant atheistic movement, right? But somehow religions are increasing in numbers, and I wondered, why is it that the secular perspective on life is not enough, right? And why is it that the religious perspective on life has become why is the religious perspective of still of interest, right? And you know what I realized? I realized it's just permissions on our nature. In a religious worldview, you are a transcendental being and you're not alone in the cosmos. In the secular perspective, you are a hallucination of an elemental reality that that cannot be connected to any story at all. Do you know? It's like somebody looking at, let's say, the color blue and being like, what does blue mean? Let's find the secrets and mysteries of the color blue. It's just blue, So similarly, when we look at physical existence from a secular perspective, it's actually what true secularism is the realization that there is nothing here, right? This is why it's as if, which is more appealing, a world where there is something here, let's say an ultimate force here, and a world where there is no ultimate force, and especially considering we're a creature that its memories give it accumulations of its character. Everybody's trying to be better. The whole self-help industry is like, be your best, keep going, but it's like, what is the best, right? And it's such a strange situation, There was a time where I thought the mystical reality, if there are moments where truth is being instantaneously being, like an instantaneous moment can't be measured. In an unknown world, perhaps knowledge discovering its limits will lead to the divine reality. Because what could the divine reality be? Is the divine reality another story? Is it another world? Is it another state? You know, some people have this view that when you die, you go to the afterlife, right? Then there's a judgment. From the Abrahamic tradition, there's a judgment, and then it's like based on that judgment, you either go into an eternal hell loop or an eternal paradise loop, right? In the Bhagavad Gita, it says that if a person did good actions after this life, they will go to the moon, and in the moon they will experience the simulations of their paradise. That is the reward of their meritorious actions. And then they will in some sense return back to earth to continue on their karma, right? It would be as if, like, imagine me talking about advanced civilizations, right? So it would be like if I died, it would be as if the Bhagavad Gita is saying, all right, I would go into the moon, I would experience advanced civilizations, and then I would return back here. But there's also this other approach that if a person has wondered about freedom and has come to the conclusion that you are not just liberated from this world by yourself, right? That means it's as if like self-enlightenment is for the mind, collective enlightenment poetically is for the soul. The soul is not an individual entity, but the mind has to be in order to be able to move the body. However, I have observed also another view on what the afterlife would be, and it could be that it goes towards an inconceivable dimension. So think of it this way: being anything other than a human being, you are experiencing your visible life. The human species has the very profound, let's say, evolutionary privilege to experience a visible and an invisible life. But the divine reality of poetically how the soul is returning to its origin, it is the inconceivable, dear viewers. That means it's like to be a human being. Think of it this way: to not be self-aware is like a physical life. It's just pretty much a visible life, invisible life, inconceivable life. Those creatures that are bound by their instincts and are programmed by their environment, that's the visible life. Those beings who realize the blind spots of their reality, those people who suddenly imagine you're someone who you've tried to be rational your whole life, but you realize your rationality is limited to the number of variables and the information you have, the limits of the information you have. Let's say there's a party, 4 people, right? One of them orders a pizza for 4 people, and after that one orders, right? Or let's say they're like, okay, rationally a pizza that feeds 4 people, but imagine right before they give in the order, there comes a phone call that 4 more people are coming. Right, so it's as if when the information, let's say reality is added, the whole rationalization is like reset, with added dimensions. That's what I'm trying to say. I have wondered about the inconceivable life, And I wondered about it in this way where I'm like, okay, I saw the visible life. I saw and realized how I am being a physical creature in a physical place. And then, through my own experiences, and especially giving these talks kind of contributed. I've realized that the nature of my mind has a spontaneous quality. And so it's like the conclusion of the mind is actually those who are patient, those who can watch their mind get to use it. Those who can't watch their own mind, if they use their mind, they wouldn't know what they're doing. So I have moved in my visible life enough, and I have moved in my invisible life enough. And I would say I reached a point where I was like, I've seen it though. I've seen the edge of my physical being and the edge of my invisible being. The space that is holding all the moments I have journeyed through. And so the inconceivable life remains. And here's the hilarious thing. A person may have faith in the visible, and let's say some people may have faith, some religious people have faith in the invisible, right? Right now as I'm giving this talk, how many people are just praying for angels and truth to guide them, It's like callings to the unknown. To be a religious person is really like, your soul has been stranded in the wrong place, and you're constantly trying to get to the right place, and the fear of a misstep. Really what to be a truly religious person is like climbing a mountain. One wrong move and it's as if you become unworthy of the summit. But in reality, all are worthy of the summit. When it comes to my visible life, I'm like, okay, what's the purpose of my visible life? It's to exist. I'm already existing. It's like mission complete. Just by existing. I think about what is the purpose of my mind, my invisible life, and for me it's communication. And as long as in this life there was an effort towards not just self-expression, but self-expression as a universal self-expression, right? It's as if the mind has done its task. The mind did all that it could. Whether these talks are seen as a sort of interdimensional cosmic cry for help, or as a seed for eyes that deserved more. Sometimes it's like I feel like a gardener, and other times, I think about human history and I'm like, if we cut all the trees, or let me say it this way, it's as if human history is super sad and super savage, right? But at the same time, in the savageness, there was a sort of a gentle crack, a gentle view. There has been something this whole time that has enabled the species to continue on, and there has been so many different eyes. When I think about it, it gives me goosebumps actually, to think about how many different types of human beings and creatures have experienced this earth, and they have lived, and they have become memories that only let's say the earth remembers and man forgets. on some level, the search for divinity is like a conditionally imperfect creature seeking for an unconditional perfect state. It's the hassle of time, you know. I feel that within every human being there is something that requires to activate. And what this is that the inconceivable life is the totality of the responsibility of one's invisible universal life. So what it means is that you are a creature in a world, you are a creature clothed by the world. And so it's as a, or let me say it this way, this creature that is in a world is a worldly entity. That means the most common denominator force in all consciousness is that they are wheeling somewhere. You know, they are somewhere, right? So it's the world is defining all relationships. But if a being somehow realizes, and I find the algorithm the ancient yogis figured out pretty much one of the most you could say divine questions, you know, or you can say a tool to truly discover divine reality is the question, who am I? This question is more powerful than any mantra, any theatrical performance of a sort of desire. It is in reality attention, not fearing to know its source. So think of it this way. In order to be visible entities, we require to be worthy of manifestation. Now imagine if we are let me say it this way, in order to be visible entities, we require to be worthy of our invisible life, our mind. Now in order to be worthy of our in order to now be an invisible being, it's as if we require to be worthy of the inconceivable. Pretty much truth seems to be a reverse engineering effort towards the edge of the first wave of information that the being accepted. That means it's a search beyond your earliest memory. And it's as if the person's like, before I had a name, before I had memories of my personality, who was I? Who was I when I was no one? Strange blessing of, I shouldn't say failure, but anybody who feels empty. That emptiness is a strange permission for the world to be full again. The destiny of an advanced civilization will eventually lead towards an inconceivable life, and an inconceivable life is an acceptance. You see, think of it this way. A physical being has access to physical reality. A visible being has access to visible reality. An invisible being has access to invisible reality. Now, an inconceivable being would have access to inconceivable reality. But this is the kicker, because we cannot give the idea of the inconceivable to any conception. So for me, like, whatever happens at the end of this life, a part of me knows, like, okay, there was the visible, there was the invisible. These things both moved, sometimes in accordance to my free will, sometimes the free will was in the passenger seat, but it was as if what is truly here got to see a sort of visible dance, right? And it also danced invisibly, right? That means anybody who closes their eyes and remembers something, your mind is invisibly dancing. So the question comes, what is beyond the invisible life that seems to be moving our visible life? And this is where the title of this episode is kind of like my response, where I'm saying when divine reality smiled to be remembered, as if there is something within us which is at a very core, let's say essential level, inconceivable. It's another way of saying if our mind is being space cannot be conceived and it cannot die. Intelligent space would be an example of an eternal being. But intelligent matter, I feel what it is that it's pretty much we're identifying with the character in the video game, and this character in the video game begins to realize it was a programmer of the video game. It designed certain parts of the video game. Now, this character in a video game, imagine first wave of enlightenment. It realizes it's not just a pixelated character and it's watching a screen. And so now, then the next thing is the person realizes they are not the character in the video game, they're the one playing it. So suddenly this is where CDs or CDAs, this is where a power from beyond this dimension unlocks for the individual. If the individual knows that power that has been unlocked is being unlocked from somewhere beyond it, right? This world is kind of strange. I think it's due to just the nature of karma and just the samsaric structure we're in, that it's how would I say it? If somebody has power, they don't need to use it on some level, right? Or if they use it, they are not the one using it. Honestly, like right now as I'm giving this talk, I'm like, okay, where's the divine reality? And I look at my body and I'm like, if I attribute divinity to change, then everything would be divine. But if I attribute divinity to the changeless, it's like my body is the pixels in the video game. My mind is how I'm looking at the screen and moving this character in the video game. My soul is the remembrance that it's as if before I played this video game, I was not someone playing this game. That means it's like we are a player in a game of a world, and we realize it's like the purpose of this game was, let's say the entertainment of a higher being. But it's as if when you have been entertained enough, what happens? You step away from the screen of the video game that you thought you were the character of. It's another way of saying we climb out of the truths that are conditional. Now, someone, let's say, may say, in accordance to, let's say, past accounts of divine reality, that Mr.Within, how does someone know they are worthy? Right? It's as if it's like one of those King Arthur moments, right? It's as if, how does the person know that they deserve the collective's life? That means it's another way of saying, like, a person may deserve their individual life, but does an individual deserve a collective life? Imagine the character in this pixel video game that's being used as a metaphor for this current life we're living. Imagine this character in this video game completes the game, but endlessly resets. So imagine somebody creates a game where the purpose of the game is for the game to never end, so it's an endless reset. And so this character in the video game has to suddenly notice, like, okay, in this constant cycle of manifestation, as if the person believed in reincarnation and they were like, okay, in one past life I was good, in another past life I was bad, I was good, I was bad, I was good. You see, it's like after some point, what is the changing world trying to show us, you know? Why is karma being accessed? Why is this creature required to become conscious of how it has caused certain things that its mind's receiving as an effect of the world? I have had moments where I could say it's pretty much like, you know, it's my own, at least to my own eyes, it's my own way of meditation, where to me it's kind of like a signal. There are certain moments where I suddenly just get a feeling to stop being an idea, and I just go sit down, sit still and silent, and I watch my mind. When I watch my mind, I notice different ideas coming and going, and I also notice my attention leaping, so jumping from different points. Like, it's as if a person's sitting down and they're trying to concentrate, but at first they're concentrating on everything, so their attention is jumping all over the place. After some point, they concentrate on who is concentrating. So it's like if life is for you being defined by the observed, it's like the mystery of the observer. Now, when a person sits down still and silent, their body is not moving, so they can simply observe their body, but they also get to observe how their mind is moving. When you have watched your mind and you have just realized, like, the mind is like, the reason they called it the monkey mind is because attention just, you know, jumps everywhere, it rescans. So it's another way of saying you treat your mind, this might sound bizarre, but you treat your mind like a foolish child that's just playing. Okay? You watch your mind in that sense, and after some point you come to this realization, what is watching my moment of being right now? And you see it's the whole moment being. So the verb that was trying to help us find truth like a noun suddenly made us realize it's like the secrets, the mysteries of how we are being goes beyond how we are being human. That means it's the human being, the being part is like a door to the divine reality. The human part is literally, you know, the door that needs to be opened. You know? Some may think the purpose of human life is knowledge. I'll tell you no. The purpose of human life is to notice the unknown. And those who establish a relationship with the unknown, the only thing you can do is trust. It's like, again, the person playing a character in a video game. If they truly want to trust the unknown, they have to, like, stop playing the video game for like a moment and just get off the chair that is holding reality in place, you know? It's something the species hasn't acknowledged yet. If I was giving this talk, let's say in the year 2422, parallel lives would be as normal as a singular life. In ancient times, they acknowledged parallel lives, right? I remember as a kid, like, the idea of the soul was so strange, as if, like, why does the idea exist? Why have some concepts out of all the concepts and manifestations survived? You know, how hilarious would it be if, so many people are trying to get to heaven and then they realize they were already in it, you know? Imagine Earth was happening in heaven, was being simulated in heaven. It would be another way of saying, imagine the present being simulated from the future. The options are really, you either become an ideological clone of the past, you either become, let's say, an experiential entity where your every experience redefines you. Pretty much you live in accordance to either the past, the present, or the future. And some may say, Mr. Within, these are all being used at the same time. I'll be like, sure, the present does project the sense of past and future, but there's something else going on. And to be a futurist right now may seem like a technological view, but I would tell you it is actually it's like an holy man. A futurist is like a holy man of a secular society. They have realized what the past could do. They have seen the limitations found in the present. And what other task does our attention have other than to advance? What have we as human beings been doing, right? Everything subconsciously is for the advancement of something. If we are selfish, we want ourselves to advance before the world. If we are selfless, we want the world to advance before the self. And now more than ever, there requires a sort of global selflessness where we're like, okay, everybody, regardless of the language we use to define them, we're just being creatures on a rock in the middle of nowhere. That is freedom, dear viewers. That is a true, I would say, freedom of the intellect, right? Where you do not ignore the unknown, because that is what we are being. What we are afraid of, how hilarious is it? Human beings are afraid of what may happen, all the unknown things, but we are actually experiencing the known in an unknown way. And who knew the greatest fear of mankind was the fear of its greatest self? And it's okay to say it, because all human beings, none excluded, I will tell you, even if, let's say, you're a person who from the beginning of your life, everything you have done has been victorious and you have been not challenged, or you have never failed, at some point you will realize something bigger. You will realize something, an event taking place that surpasses the certainties of the invisible life. Because for how long does this attention need to stare at conditions? Like, why? Why is an intelligence noticing the conditions of reality? Why a self in a world? Is it something that, is it a secret of the world, or is it the secret of the self that realized it was beyond the world where it was separating itself from to exist? I'm gonna go into a quote tunnel of the concept of divinity. Pretty much I'm going to read quotes of people who have talked about divinity. Charles Lindbergh, he says, life is a culmination of the past and awareness of the present, an indication of a future beyond knowledge, the quality that gives a touch of divinity to matter. Oh my God, that's so an excellent quote. Alexander Hamilton says, the sacred rights of mankind are not to be rummaged for among old parchments or musty records. They are written as with a sunbeam in the whole volume of human nature by the hand of divinity itself, and can never be erased or obscured by mortal power. A.R. Rahman says, your inner voice is the voice of divinity. To hear it, we need to be in solitude, even in crowded places. Now, just a comment on this quote. You know, I'm this guy using the name Mr.Within, right? And if somebody asks me, okay, should you trust the voices in your mind or not? I would say that the purpose of an inner voice is not a person blindly follows their thoughts, right? But it's kind of to notice the capability of your mind, what it can access to, what it has a reach for, right? So it's as if there's a lot of ideas that come to my mind, but I don't share all of them, you know? The inner voice, it's another way of saying if you can find a moment you trust, it doesn't matter if you hear an inner voice, if you see an image or whatever happens, when you trust the moment, strangely the moment was forever free. But when you distrust the moment, it's as if something has denied change, its freedom. And because at the same time, like, it's an incredible strategy to trust the world in a world where we don't know what it is. Why? Because we don't know what happens, right? A person, at least if they distrust the world, they know what happens. They don't become part of that world. But if you trust the reality, right, that means the whole vision of mine of building an advanced civilization, I'm like, oh my God, how do we get the human species to not fight over its past, not fight over the present, but to trust itself as it designs the most incredible future possible? Because why not? You know, why not usher in humanity into the era of an advanced humanity? What do we have to lose? We have the human species has, loathed itself for too long. You know, it's like right now, if you ask people, are human beings a good force on the planet? Most people will be like, no, we're, ruining trees, helping, taking advantage of lesser species, eating animals, creating air pollution. It's like if human beings weren't here, it would be better. We have this idea, but we have never wondered, okay, what if the change of it? It's as if we're like, let's get rid of something and it'll be better. But in reality, what if we redirected what we have? That means the power of the advanced civilization, or an advanced civilization, would emerge when the current civilization uses its past rather than in some sense rejecting it. Back to the quote tunnel. Henry David Thoreau. Nature is full of genius, full of the divinity, so that not a snowflake escapes its fashioning hand. Heraclitus says a man's character is his guardian divinity. Christopher Hitchens says, even if I accepted that Jesus, like almost every other prophet on record, was born of a virgin, I cannot think that this proves the divinity of his father or the truth of his teachings. The same would be true if I accepted that he had been resurrected. Yeah, I mean, sure, but if Christopher Hitchens was alive, what I would say in response to what he said was that, sure, a person can say they don't believe in, let's say, the resurrection of Jesus, but if you can say that, you have to also say the belief in oneself is as abstract as the belief in any other idea. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm saying that if the problem is an idea is untrue, then the problem is from an idea. You know? That means it's like if somebody says they don't believe in God, then simultaneously they have to say they don't believe in self, because self is an invisible idea we're believing in. You know, nobody has a problem in believing their invisible identity and language as a name and as a person with a backstory, right? Right? But when it comes to like believing in God, we're like, we don't like that invisible idea in contrast to this invisible idea, you know? For me, I'm like, you know, I think I'm someone who both the secular and religious society may get mad at, but at the same time, there is no reason though, you know, because my view is ultimately that truth is beyond language. Language has always been pointing to truth. It cannot replace truth. A story cannot replace reality. You know, it can give it color, it can give it meaning, right? Like, let's say somebody sees a beautiful person, right? It's as if when you see a beautiful person, you're simultaneously seeing a beautiful story, you know? David Hume, scholastic learning and polemical divinity retarded the growth of all true knowledge. True knowledge is a new response to the unknown, really. But anyways, I'll keep going with these quotes. Paramahansa Yogananda. Introspection, or sitting in silence, is an unscientific way of trying to force apart the mind and senses tied together by the life force. The contemplative mind, attempting its return to divinity, is constantly dragged back toward the senses by the life currents. Voltaire says when men do not have healthy notions of the divinity with capital D, false ideas supplant them, just as in bad times one uses counterfeit money when there is no good money. John Lennon, I'm not claiming divinity. I never claimed purity of soul. I've never claimed to have the answers to life. I only put out songs and answer questions as honestly as I can, but I still believe in peace, love, and understanding. Swami Shivananda, it is the divinity that shapes not only your ends, but also your acts, your words, and thoughts. Wayne Dyer says, trust and value your own divinity as well as your connection to nature. Seeking God's work everywhere will be your reward. Seeing God's work everywhere will be your reward. We have forgotten that the essence of the universal mystery is starting from our eyes. In the outer realms, there was only existence. In the inner realms, there was the living, the meaning part, you know. Being alive is like a physical outer realm idea, and living is like a non-physical inner realm idea. It's pretty much like if physical reality and the geometry of reality was like piano keys. It's like as if the person's destiny is how the free will, like fingers, will begin playing its melody. You know, in these Mr. Within talks, a concept that would keep coming and going, like in the talks, was this idea of songs of the advanced civilization. And I remember a couple times when I was saying that throughout the talks, I was like, on the side of saying, like, giving the talk, I was also thinking, like, does that mean I gotta sing one day? I'm like, Logos, what do you want me to do? But then I realized what it is that, think of it this way. Think of it that there is like 8 billion seeds of a sequoia tree planted, and the seeds are in the soil, right? And so these sequoia seeds are all depressed, and they're like, we're in the dirt, we're in the middle of nowhere, we're we're just seeds in a what's the point of life? What's the meaning of it? And so it's as if, imagine sequoia seeds imbued with human personality being depressed that they are sequoia seeds, being ungrateful of their existence, only to realize that if they had trust, a sequoia tree would emerge. Do you know? That's what I'm trying to say. An advanced civilization is not just technological innovations. It's literally the next chapters of human intelligence. It's like the seed fulfilling its destiny. And faith in the geometry of one's being leads to that destiny. The question, who am I, is like a portal. It's a portal back into an original awareness to your own being. And what's the most original thing? Nothing. Nothing. It's as if when you realize that, it's like, let's say you thought you're a bad person or you thought you're a good person. And then you're like, which one am I? And you realize before you did anything good or bad, you were nothing. You were the potential. Right now, we're not living in an advanced civilization, but we are the potential of an advanced civilization. How advanced human beings live in 2022 will suggest how advanced the future generations will be. And so it's like, at least the effort I have for my lifetime, I'm like, okay, advanced usage of the human experience. And it's another way of saying, like, some beings, their attention is more comfortable with multiple points. For me, I'm kind of like someone who sees something, and if I don't know the truth of it, it's going to pull me into figuring out why. Self-knowledge is literally just like seeing all the stuff that you don't know and realizing that's the homework. Let me take this to the inner life and outer life. Let's say somebody seeing the divine reality in outer life would be equivalent to like a miracle happening. Okay? Let's say somebody was, imagine a car was about to hit them and the car dodges them. I'll share a story with the viewers. In 2014, in UK Birmingham, right? I was a student there, international student. And something happened where I was walking, like I was talking to a friend of mine, and I was walking across the street, and because, like, I don't know, sometimes in Iran, like, there's people jaywalk a lot, right? So I'm like a, excellent jaywalker, actually. But not but in like a, country where people don't care about jaywalking, right? Like the police. anyways, so there was a situation where somebody pulled me off from the street, and one of those red buses was passing from a very sharp curve, right? And in that moment, it was just this feeling like, whoa. something happened beyond my doing that kept me here. That is one's initial relationship with divinity. Your divine reality is how the unknown movements of life are orchestrating the known movements. Pretty much think of it this way: knowledge is like a shape, and so the idea is the knowledge of self. How is it being shaped? That means if we were like a candle, if the brain was like a candle and consciousness was its glow, it's as if, how is this candle flickering? And it's as if we are like the glow of a candle that can notice and be sentient and conscious of the wind. So after going through moments, even moments where, how would I tell you, like I've had a question, and right after I've sincerely had a question, sentences have popped into my mind as a sort of, it's like think of it this way: imagine your mind. This is a very hilarious statement, but imagine if you don't love your mind only, your mind loves you. So imagine this intelligence that is being present as the human intelligence. Imagine the intelligence loves how the archetype is there, or how the archetype is being present. It's as if like when the world loves itself, it includes all parts of it, right? The person was like, man, nobody loves me, but wait a minute, does the world love me? And it's like, as long as we're breathing, the answer is yes. Oh man. It's all about movement. One's visible life is like photographs of meaning. One's invisible life is like how they are piloting their attention to be anything at all in the void. The unknown for some people is a source of fear, but for me, for the honest engagement with it, the unknown actually becomes a source of confidence. It's as if that's a strange power, that the archetype that trusts the world. Imagine you trust something in life. When you trust it, it's as if your intelligence has opened to it. Trust is a strange way of saying it's karmic merging, It's kind of like a child being raised by the parents, and we're like, okay, what is the child's karma and what is the parent's karma? Is the child living inside the parent's karma? And then what does it imply about the child having its own poetically workings of the soul? We are not in this world to just see the world for the first time. We're also here to see ourself, our real self, for the first time. And there's so many different schools of thought, pretty much 4 schools of thought. The real self could be void, 0. The real self could be singular, God, like 1. The real self could be dual. It could be that it's what we think is the absolute. The absolute is duality, right? We can make duality into a sort of ultimatum, and then there could be the infinite. For me, what's strange? There's been times where my attention has felt like an infinite being, but it's not something that this current civilization can access. So that would be for, I don't know, give it like 1,000 years. That's when infinite psychological entities will consciously be mobile, What is living? It's the intersection of dimensions. It's literally like a symphony. The person looks at their visual senses. Imagine your 5 senses. It was like an ensemble or something. It's as if, imagine sight was an instrument, hearing was an instrument, taste was an instrument, sensation, and all of these instruments are playing at once for the mind to simply see a world of texture and quality, you know. You know, it's like this. It's kind of like we are an inconceivable witness of an invisible way to be a visible entity. The inconceivable dimension present within everyone, that means hilariously what is within all of us, it cannot be anything less than the whole moment. The whole moment is inconceivable. The whole moment is watching everything happening in it. You know? It's like this view that God is the space of everything. From a corner of the universe, how the universe is happening for you. What greater and enlightened strategy to enlightenment could there be other than that? Let me see if there's more divinity quotes to read. Khalil Gibran says, "Nor shall this derision prove powerful against those who listen to humanity or those who follow in the footsteps of divinity, for they shall live forever, forever." William Temple says, "I have always looked upon alchemy and natural philosophy to be like enthusiasm in divinity, and to have troubled the world much to the same purpose." Giordano Bruno says, "There is one simple divinity found in all things, one fecund nature, preserved mother of the universe insofar as she diversely communicates herself, casts her light into diverse subjects, and assumes various names." Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. Maharishi Mahesh Yogi says, "Individual potential of life is cosmic potential. Individual is divine deep inside. Transcendental experience awakens that divinity in man, and when you kill a man, you deprive him of that birthright of it. That means we're like these advanced beings with advanced potentials, and violence is so unnecessary that it's as if it's like we, rather than wanting to see human beings that have succeeded and lost, rather than being caught in an enemy game, the species stops its ideological civil war. The future is more important than the present, because why is the present here? Wilfrid Laurier says the divinity could be invoked as well in the English language as in the French. Christopher Dawson says humanism and divinity are as complementary to one another in the order of culture as the nature and grace in the order of being. Yeah, that's a good metaphor. Human nature in contrast to divine grace. And what is grace? It's like an ability to move without air. It's as if there's no fear of consequence in a graceful moment. John Templeton says the correct description is that we try every day to become more humble when we talk about divinity. We try to realize how little we know and how open-minded we should be. Novalis, like it's just one name, Novalis, says nothing is more indispensable to true religiosity than a mediator that links us with divinity. Padma Lakshmi says, from the simple stringing together of lemon garlands for the goddess Durga to dividing the prasadam or blessed foods for the children first, I came to associate food not only with femininity but also with purity and divinity. Carl Wilhelm Friedrich Schlegel says, wit is the appearance, the external flash of imagination. Thus, its divinity and the witty character of mysticism. Cory Booker says, I debated between law school and divinity. That's hilarious. That's like man's laws or divine laws. Jane Ann Phillips says, divinity. That's what I'm trying to get at in everything I write. Someone named Lilette Doobie says, I believe divinity is within us. I'm sure she'd subscribe to the YouTube channel. Ashwin Sanghi says, the Egyptians saw the sun and called him Ra, the sun god. He rode across the sky in his chariot until it was time to sleep. Copernicus and Galileo proved otherwise, and poor Ra lost his divinity. Wow. This guy's writing style is on another level. I think, guys, the quotes are finished. Like, there's nothing else here. Okay, here. Lynn Whitfield. A spiritual relationship to me is much more about making your own connection to the divinity that you believe in, and much less about the person, the shepherd, who's overseeing it all. I'm gonna read more Maharishi Mahesh Yogi quotes. Maharishi Mahesh Yogi says, happiness radiates like the fragrance from a flower and draws all good things towards you. And if we build an advanced civilization, everybody has a reason to be happy. You know, it's as if the meaning of our life is going, the energy, that the energetic effort of every human lifetime goes to the greatness of the human lifetime, you know? To the greatness of humanity. Why else are we like, you know, it's as if like 8 billion creatures that look like each other. Why? Why are we 8 billion creatures that look the same? Obviously to use this, right? It's as if to be a part of the human species is equivalent to like a divine gift, like Thor's hammer. You're privileged to be part of a collective life. Right, and the collective life of the species needs to activate. That's the whole point of movies like Mr.Within talks. Like, that's the gift. Maharishi Mahesh Yogi says, change the song. No, he doesn't say that. Maharishi Mahesh Yogi says, the philosophy of life is this. Life is not a struggle, not a tension. Life is bliss. It is eternal wisdom, eternal existence. Maharishi Mahesh Yogi says, whatever we put our attention on will grow stronger in our life. So whoever's listening, please put your attention on the advanced civilization. Just consider its value. Maharishi Mahesh Yogi says, there is one unity, unified wholeness, total natural law in the transcendental unified consciousness. Maharishi Mahesh Yogi says the self of everyone, the Atma of everyone, the transcendental field of reality of everyone is the same in everyone. Whether the body calls itself an American, German, Indian, or Chinese, it doesn't matter. You must learn to take life less seriously and to laugh. Yeah, but for how long do we laugh? Like at some point we're like, okay, let's build something that is not convinced by its failure. Let us live in this grand story. The advanced civilization is the greatest human story. It is the greatest story of mankind. The advancement of everything at once. We have been waiting for divinity only to realize we are the pilots of the cosmic sky. So let's say the species somehow unlocked a hidden playfulness, okay? The species, just for a moment, let's see what an advanced civilization would look like. Let's see what advanced beings would look like. It would be like the victory of 8 billion creatures and more, So imagine we have allowed this, and now we are, let's say we built the advanced civilization, and we've been enduring in it for as long as possible. And then when I've written when divine reality smiled to be remembered, that would be this idea that the most advanced civilization, the most advanced movement would be an instantaneous movement, as if something was trying to happen so fast that it happened instantaneously. And so it would be like, and the most advanced civilizations, they are faster than light. Imagine they advance faster than light, so they would be invisible. Through an instantaneous advancement, it's like the truth seeker dissolves into the truth that was always there. The finale of the unknown journey of the invisible life is not an inconceivable place, but an inconceivable acceptance. The species is going beyond itself, beyond the creaturehood. That's like the far future of an advanced civilization. It's like, for how long do we keep this theatrical play of the human ideology around, right? It's like we're trying to keep it alive till the end of time, but at some point intelligence would be capable of acknowledging itself beyond the boundaries of the human idea. So to be a human being now is like a very rare opportunity. To be alive before an advanced civilization has arose is a rare opportunity. To be conscious is the rarest opportunity, because it's like, what were the options? Either I never existed at all, or now I am here, and that's what divinity is. It is what's happening, what's in the room at all. In the void, where the meaning lives is the truth. So anyways, guys, thanks for listening, and I hope this episode was helpful. And so, most likely, the species is leading to a point where an inconceivable being can completely acknowledge all the dimensions of its being, so that the workings of the body and matter, the workings of the mind in all the fathomable parallel geometric dimensions, where the world is going into it's like the destiny of the human species is to walk to the edges of the dimension it finds itself, but to realize that its intelligence is not just from this dimension. Because whoever you are, you choose. Some part of you pilots your attention. It's like to free our eyes from the world is to trust all that is and more. Every human being should buy a notebook and start acting as a researcher and explorer of the mysteries of the world. It is the era of advanced communication. The purpose of the visible life is to build an advanced civilization. The purpose of the invisible life is to advance communication. The ultimate advancement of communication would be instantaneous universal presence. So omnipresence is a way where all individual dimensions know they are being Anyways, I'll let that be the end of the episode. Thanks for listening, guys. Much blessings and namaste. Rise, mankind, rise. The void is an opportunity for the temporary to wonder why eternal visions are here. Why are we looking at a world why worldhood? Eventually we are led to the acceptance of our being. If we can accept how we are being, we free our mind to what it can do. An advanced civilization awaits for all those who have found it in their inner lives. Much blessings and honesty.